Welcome back to the Steve Scully Unfiltered podcast. I'm just going to jump right in. I don't even know what I'm going to talk about, but here I am. It's been about 2 weeks since I recorded, I noticed, so I got to get going. I'm probably going to use some of this month's upload limit to update old files to MP3s because I noticed my most recent podcast functions, which I posted as an MP3 rather than a M4A, and so I'm gonna probably try to update those so they function, because that's kind of frustrating that people have to like really want to listen to jump through the hurdles to get through to actually manage to get it to function, to actually listen to my podcast on podcasts, not just on YouTube. Who, by the way, I got an email. They're gonna start monetizing videos, even if the account's not monetized. And so, even though I don't want ads on my videos, they're gonna start doing that. That's kind of, I mean, I get it. Especially for me, I got real big files on it on YouTube for free. I just hosted. Probably terabytes. So I mean, I kind of get it. It just kind of sucks because it basically puts another barrier, just something else that if the account isn't like popping already, it's even that, it's just that much harder to get it started. And I like the concept of being like, hey, I don't agree with monetizing. I don't agree with forcing you to see ads to listen to my content or view my content. But now that's kind of going away. And I mean, I don't know if YouTube is where I'll be forever. I like to think that maybe someday there's going to be more freedom-based forms of posting content, where freedom actually is allowed to reign and people are respectful because they understand the implications of not like adhering to a civil discourse. In terms of like, we need a system, then we need some kind of form of punishment. So it's always that issue where if something comes along that really allows freedom to reign, people are just gonna like shit all over it and just abuse it, use it. It's just gonna be some like cesspool. Unless people like really put the energy into overwhelming that. Like, no, it's just such a minor part of it because people are actually on a large scale being civil, which encourages people to change their way, I would say. Like, if the majority of the people on the platform are not fighting. Because, I mean, there's going to come a day when like, these websites, I'm starting to think, like, podcasts, for instance, they're hosted for free. There's going to come a time when they start enforcing their own ads into the content that people have posted there because they have all this content, like YouTube's doing. Like, oh, we got all this content, and it's just so much potential for ad revenue where there's just no ad revenue. So let's put ads. And they're going to just put ads in all this content and just fucking leech. It's just like this siphoning of money. And what does that do? It makes people less desire to actually use the platform. And it's not a long-term strategy because it's going to lead to basically the platform's downfall. But when everyone's doing it, Oh well, especially if YouTube just did it, I expect podcasts to start having like the hosting platform just insert their own ads to make some revenue. And maybe it's a good strategy that they're employing to like remove competition by having it the way it is initially, and then over time starting to input their ads. It's really not a good thing when I see YouTube doing it. It means to me that other companies are going to follow suit. It's going to be a standard to just insert ads on people's content. Be like, this is the price you pay. The price you pay for us hosting your content is we get to put ads in it. Ads are so bad. They're such a waste of money. Like, if your product is that shitty that you need to advertise it everywhere, then maybe the world doesn't need it that bad. You know? It's just oversaturation. Like, there's this like void because we don't have whatever the thing is in society, and then people see opportunity and then they try to fill the void, and then they overfill it and create this like oversaturation and an artificial abundance because we didn't really need all that shit, but we made more than we needed, and then the price drives down because there's all this competition going on. It's like, whoa, maybe let's just relax and not be so ad driven. Like, if something's a good idea, truly, it's going to get out there organically. But it's going to be much more difficult for an idea like that to get out there organically when there's just all this noise. Blah, 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 blah. Just ads. You should get this product. This product. Holy shit, guys. Like, is anyone who's making these ads like really concerned about long-term health of society? There's so much flaw with the way businesses are ran, like in terms of like it's so money centric. So like in the short term we make this money gain, so we're gonna take this route where maybe it's not the best for society. Like, let's say we buy this product and knowingly buy excess and knowing that some of it's going to be wasted, and knowing that what we're going to do with that wasted product is, rather than like inserting it into society so society benefits at large, which would make sense, rather than that, we'll just throw it in the trash, destroy it, and write it off on our taxes. And the government's like, good job destroying that product. You get to save money on your taxes. Congratulations. What a really just sound and logical system that is. Like, why not donate? Why not have... Oh, because of the people that you're trying to sell to aren't going to buy when they get it for free. So you got to create like the circumstance where they're willing to pay because they have no other way. But I mean, there's still this issue. It's because it's money centric. There's all this wastefulness that's just not even necessary if we were to just like not function that way. But because of the money focus, which is no one's fault. I mean, it's where we're at as a society because we've kind of become addicted to it in a way. Like, it's a great, easy way to show value and make an exchange. It's just the problem is it becomes fake and baseless because it has no backing when we remove it from like a gold standard, for instance. Something that's actual valuable asset that's like dense like gold, meaning like the amount of value per area is high so that it's stored in a small area. Can't have something that's like not dense that's valuable. It has to be something that's kind of last. I mean, that's gold. It's just gold. Gold is the standard. And if we take it off of it and pretend like our money is still the same, like it does work. The system keeps functioning because it has momentum. It's not like it's just gonna stop. Oh, okay, because we changed the money to be off of the gold standard. Either it's wrong and it just collapses instantly, or it's a fair and reasonable thing to do, and we see that is resultant because we continue to see a positive effects in society. But that's only short term. And it feeds into our willingness to continue to do it, and then it just compounds the problem. And now it's so immense of a problem that they're talking about the Great Reset, and they're gonna blame it on COVID. COVID's just been a scapegoat, the invisible scapegoat. It doesn't even have to be. You can't see it. It's just everywhere. It's pervasive. Fear, fear, fear. You know, they say people are terrorists. You know what a terrorist is? It's someone who induces fear into the general public, which is precisely what the media and the government has been doing just systematically when it comes to COVID. Systematically. Fear, fear, fear. Literally terrorists, by definition. Like, something's got to give. And the reason they're doing that is because they want a scapegoat, because the currency is just valueless. Like, the system is collapsing from all of the poor management of the economy globally, as country after country decides, okay, we're just going to start printing money. And then they do it, and then the other countries look at them and they're like, well, that's kind of bullshit. They're printing money and we're not printing money. Why don't we print money? And then they print money and they're like, wow, look at that. Look at all the goods we got from the printed money we just made. Let's do it again. But then, like, the currency just collapses because it's valueless. And people over time start to realize, wait, you're giving me nothing in exchange for an actual tangible product, and then the value of the product increases. Meanwhile, wages don't really change, and so there's this like inflation going on that's gonna be massive as the actual like inflation due to printing money constantly really starts to enter into our observed prices, because it's not instantaneous. It's like a reaction. And the more we feed into it, the more we cause the activation energy to actually cause the steady state equilibrium that we are at functionally to change. And it's not for the better when we're just printing fiat currency. Like, that's not a route to a prosperous society. Like, that's definitively going to lead to a reduction in the average steady state equilibrium of society at large, which is basically the median where we live, is going to be lower. A lower standard of living is the result for everyone on average. I mean, there's the few who benefit, at least in the short term, but like, even them, what happens when the world is so shitty that you don't want to go anywhere? You can't go anywhere. Then there's going to be like these walled off cities where the only way to enter is through some like military guarded entry points to keep all the riffraff out from the elites, you know. because you can't have them coming in and taking from the abundance that we centralize into these like small locations, and kind of just, you go deal with the reality of the circumstances out there. We'll cage you out of here. Like, that's coming when they start to just block off cities. It's not solutions, though, because we're just fucking printing it. So the economy's gonna collapse, and they're talking about the Great Reset, and I keep hearing them blaming COVID. That's the thing, is that none of COVID's been about COVID. It's been about having a scapegoat for the collapsing economy, so that when they insert their new system, which they're going to do globally, when they do that, they can be like, well, we're still able to be in control. You guys are okay with us being in control still, because it wasn't our fault that the system collapsed. It was COVID's fault. And we had to close down all these small businesses. We had to close down the economy for everyone's safety, even though there's no basis. It's all fear. Fear, fear, fear. Literally terrorists. Just fucking out there creating terror. Non-stop, day in, day out. On all the news media, there's the COVID death number, there's the cases, even though it's all bullshit. And there they are, so you can see them, you can live in fear, and there's the anchor just blabbing on about how bad COVID is, and here's this new story about COVID, and COVID. Holy shit. Are you in fear yet, guys? Because that's what they're doing, is they're trying to create fear so that people go along with it. So then people start wearing the mask, living it out, and then we're kind of obligated to live it out. Then even people like myself wear the mask, even though I'm like, I don't even know that this is real. I don't know. I mean, I'm not the healthiest, and there's all sorts of reasons. Maybe there's merit for me wearing a mask, but the point is, there's all sorts of reasons there's merit not. And so, like, we're just acting it out to make it appear worse than it is. And then they're posting fake numbers. They're giving false positives. People then believe that they have COVID, who may not. At least COVID-19 specifically. Maybe they just have COVID, which is a common cold. I mean, it's kind of hilarious. Like, wow. That they're doing this. It's almost too obvious. Yeah. It's the perfect scapegoat, though. And they're going to use it as one. They're already doing it. And it's not even like minor people. There's like heads of banks. Joe Biden himself, I'm pretty sure, was talking about the Great Reset. The Great Reset. This term just keeps coming up recently. Whenever you see a bunch of politicians echoing the same catchphrase, someone's feeding it to them. They're just mouthpieces. They're not speaking their opinions. They're just basically heads of some like enterprise of idea. Like the Democratic Party, for instance. They're just getting fed things to say by a group of people. So it's not even like the individual anymore. And who is that group of people? We don't really know. It's some shadow figure. It's someone in the shadows. Their face isn't at the forefront. because they got their puppet that they're telling what to say. You go out there and say it for us. You do it. We'll give you fame. We'll give you a position of power. We'll give you this, that. But you just go out there and do the thing. And I'll be back here just kind of tugging at strings and guiding things in the shadows. And that shit's happening because they're all saying the same shit. You'll see like the same phrase suddenly said by like politician after politician in country after country around the world. Why are they all using the same phrase? And it's not like they're like constantly doing it. It's sudden and out of nowhere. It's like a change happened. A change in the language where globally everyone's using some phrase. It means they're being told to say it. Straight up. It's not like they're thinking for themselves and all arriving at, oh yes, the Great Reset. Someone is saying that shit. They're all just in agreement. Like, oh yes, this is what we need to do. And what happens next is we get more and more controlled. The vaccines are getting freaking rushed through. And that's just one vaccine, one issue. What happens when there's another so-called pandemic? Next thing we know, every issue we face is a pandemic. And then they're making excuses to take shortcuts in their bullshit drug developments to rush out a vaccine because, well, look, I got a vaccine now, and guess what's going to happen to my company? I'm going to make a lot of fucking money when the whole world wants a vaccine, and I got one. I'm not saying I'm going to have one. I got one because we fucking rushed that through. Thanks for that being a pandemic. Good thing we got to get rid of that shit. That all those mandates of things like procedures and steps of precautions, we don't have time for precaution. This is a pandemic. This is major and we need it now. And then they just convince people, yes, we need the vaccine. I don't agree ideologically with any of this. I have a freedom to practice my own religion, and I'm not being told what to do. Vaccines, no. Masks, no. Taxes, no. Fucking stop your shit. So I've been feeling some kind of pains through my body. I'm pretty sure in my veins. It's a little concerning, honestly. I don't go to the doctor at all. Well, yeah. My medical conditions are related to my state of mind, and I just need to feel happier. Which I think is partly true. Like, I'm stressed, and I'm real stressed. And it's so bad where I'm like, am I gonna kill myself? Did I already, am I a ticking time bomb? And then I'm just gone. That would suck. Not even get to be here when people realize my research. Oh, this dude has something of interest to say. Too bad we didn't listen. And then he fucking died because he's an idiot. Fucking idiot. Just not drinking water, eating unhealthy, sugar, poor diet, cigarettes. Just fucking idiot. Too bad he fucking... It's kind of concerning. Got hemorrhoids or something. Some kind of pretty major issue that's been going on for a while. Longer than my research. Pretty much it started right before my research. And then I got rid of my medical insurance because I quit my job. I was actually trying to deal with it then. Doctors didn't know what the fuck was going on. I'm like, you're a doctor, man. You don't know if this is like that or that thing. Like, they're not even like things that. Like, it's fucking eye opening to see. And then we're paying them all this fucking money because it's like a monopoly. They jumped through the hurdles. They did the things that showed that they're the authorities. Never mind that they're feeding into the hysteria and clearly not that authoritative. I mean, we're all authorities. We gotta remember we're all authorities. And all, have someone to defer to where we're not authorities. But like COVID, surgery, when surgery is so quick, it's like, whoa, dude, start cutting people up. We don't know what we're fucking doing, and it's not our bodies, so we're a little more willing to do it. Like the complications. I'm not saying it's useless or bad. It's just, it's an issue though. There's definitely something to be said for other forms of medicine besides like Western medicine. Maybe like general health, a focus on health, where we're so focused on like the solution is this, take this pill, take this thing, just a quick fix. Nothing's a quick fix that's worth it. So I read my raps last time. I'm stoked. I'd listened to that at least like 10 times already. I mean, there's so many times I'm fucked up. I'm like, oh my god. And the Katana song, I messed up so bad in one part of it. It's like, ah. And it really derails. I noticed it derails the train of thought of whatever idea I'm saying in the moment. It's just too bad, but... And it might have been nice to edit them. I didn't react to them. So at some point I'm like, this might lead into a reaction. And then it just doesn't. And I don't explain it. I just decided after the recording. That was the thing. After recording, I was like thinking about, do I react? And I was just, I just won't. It's fine. It's already like an hour and a half. Maybe I can react in some other time. I'm actually I felt good. I was like, that's better than I thought. Especially like Katana. I really like Katana. That might be my favorite. Uncoiled was my favorite. It's a little aggressive. Katana I just like. Although the other day, I was at Jack's. He shows me this sword. He's like, this is Ronnie's sword. He was moving in with him, and I'm like, oh shit, what is it? Like a samurai sword? He's like, I think it's a katana, and I'm like, if it's a katana, and I just don't even know what a katana is, and my song's called Katana. It's kind of a little embarrassing, That's okay. It gets the point across, without me needing to know all the details, which I also think about. That some things are going to be a little more clear that I have to say than others, like an engine, for talking about an engine. And its relationship to society and how society functions. But that's okay. Other people can bring more detail. It's the picture I'm painting. Some areas are going to be high resolution and high precision. Others are going to be more vague and more like Picasso-y. less like a photo. Uh, more broad strokes, larger sweeping, like one color, just broad painting rather than intricate detail. But that's my picture. Our picture collectively is not like that, though. Our picture collectively can just be a full resolution, I think. Which would be cool to get people to start to look at my research and apply it to theirs. I really would like to see where that takes us, and I don't know how to make that happen except for just to like keep going, get some attention to it, and maybe do an experiment, my double slit experiment idea, or my single slit experiment idea, or even maybe just a single piece of metal might be enough as long as I can get the laser position well and the metal to be in the same place repeatedly, like the same distance. It's tricky though because it's such a tiny distance, so to make it accurate across many materials needs like repeatable positioning and things of the materials so that the distance is the same, since it's like micrometers. I can't have it be significantly off. Even a little bit is significant, which is tricky. So I've been spending a lot of time looking at Earth, listening to Randall Carlson. Lately, I found out he had a podcast called Cosmographia with a K. So I started looking at the Earth, and he was talking about Atlantis. And he thinks Atlantis is in the central North Atlantic, around Horta, Santa Cruz das Flores, Angra do Heroismo, somewhere in the middle of the Atlantic, along the Atlantic rift in the ocean. And that's the thing, though, is it's along the rift, and like everything in the ocean is suspect in terms of, did it exist prior to the Earth expanding? Some things I'd say yes, they did exist, like Cuba, for instance, and Dominican Republic. I think these land masses, maybe even Puerto Rico, this material may have existed prior to expansion of the Earth and been part of like the Yucatan Peninsula and Nicaragua, Honduras, like the continental shelf of Central America may have been extended further and been like Cuba and Dominican Republic, and those just like broke off when the Yucatan Peninsula fractured away from Honduras and the Central America, the rest of it, because there's basically a splitting that happened, which then sent materials causing the island arc, as well as just like linear chain of islands leading up to the island arc. But Cuba and Dominican Republic and Haiti, they all look like they might be so much material that they might have actually broken off. But like the majority of islands, like Cape Verde and Canary Islands, which interestingly he talks about these. I was listening to the podcast. He was talking about some observations that he was showing that I didn't catch yet. I gotta go back and see them, because the thing with those is they're formed from like flows off of Africa for sure, because there's these flows directly towards them off of Africa from when this global flood happened that just swept into the Atlantic. As the water receded, it brought sediment with it and created islands where it basically receded off of Africa, especially where it was like lower, like once the water started to recede, so it wasn't covering the entire continent, so that some landmass was exposed, but portions of it still had major flows going through the region. Those flows brought sediment, which then literally deposited into the newly formed oceanic bed and caused Cape Verde and Canary Islands. But so these islands in the middle where the oceanic rift happened are probably formed post Earth expansion. Like almost every island. Like I would say, like for sure the Indonesian archipelago, I think it's called, or Malaysian archipelago, whatever this is called. Like it was formed for sure after the Earth expanded. I just realized I got this time over top it. I'm looking at the Google Earth with my recording timer over top it. But like they were mentioning, tsunamis will crash into the land and then they'll pull back the landmass and cause like a wave away, where it strips some of the land from the continental land and pulls it out. And I mean, that happened around the entirety of the Pacific. Entirety of it. And then we see, interestingly, the Indonesian archipelago, the focal point is towards basically the edge of the continental crust of Asia, as if there was like a flow of waves that weren't like perpendicular to the coast, but rather were more like south directed, so that they basically deflected off of the coast and continued southward. But then like as they did so, the collective of them created basically a wave parallel with the coast, which then continued down and then basically created this whole area. So I would say this is all newly formed, for instance. So like islands are very much like, wait, be careful, you don't know that even existed before the Earth expanded. But places we do know existed before the Earth expanded would be distinctly continental shelf. So like along the east coast of the United States, significantly further out than the actual coast, is the continental shelf, which all of that is where the Earth fractured initially, and then basically it got pushed away and the ocean bed formed between it, but it formed at a lower elevation than the continental crust. So there's this crust region around the continents that are higher elevation, and then they drop off, and all that after it is just like sediment deposited, but then it is in the drop off zone. And then anything between is just newly formed that literally was released from the earth, forming the ocean floor. But we can see the crust continued this whole area, the continental shelf, and I'm, I'm looking at around Canada, Nova Scotia, at the Flemish Cap area, which I really think is interesting because you can even tell the Flemish Cap, if it was uh, above water before the earth expanded, it may have still been surrounded by water because there's this like channel between Flemish Cap and then the continental shelf region that's more the rest of the continent. There's this small channel, almost like they were separate. And so it may have been an island, but made of continental shelf, which we can tell because of the way it's formed in this region. That this Flemish Cap existed prior to the Earth expanding, which is exactly where Atlantis would be found, would be on an Earth prior to expansion. It's not going to be some location that formed after the Earth expanded, because that would be new, formed after, basically after the Younger Dryas, where people are looking for the Atlantis civilization collapse, for where it was submerged in the ocean. But what's just not being really incorporated is that the Earth expanded. And if we're going to find Atlantis and we're looking over by Spain because we're thinking Strait of Gibraltar, we can also still do that if we consider that the Earth expanded and say, well, maybe North America was right there. And what's interesting is I pulled up a video of James Maxlow's, I think, or maybe and interestingly, I believe that's it. He shows the region of Flemish Cap kind of going in towards the Strait of Gibraltar on the so the James Maxlow has a video where he basically reverts time, goes back in time, and says this is what the Earth structure was at this time based on an expanding Earth model. And so I never really looked into this to see, well, where do the people who have modeled like where the old Earth was, how things were, where do they put Flemish Cap? Because if they put it right at the Strait of Gibraltar, that would be interesting, because that's actually what I think is happening. Neil Adams. Let's find this. So he's putting Flemish Cap. So there's the Strait of Gibraltar. Strait of Gibraltar. It's kind of yellow compared to the rest of Europe. Just to try to like locate it. And then Flemish Cap. Okay, so there's the Strait of Gibraltar. Right there. Right there is the Strait of Gibraltar. And right there is Flemish Cap. Like, this is Flemish Cap going in here, I think. It may be up here. It's hard to say exactly. I'm pretty sure, though, this is Flemish Cap going right into the Strait of Gibraltar. Let's go back. Oh. So we're looking here. This section. It's hard to say because he doesn't really show the continental shelf. So I'm just looking at this to see if there's any more indication. Oh. Here it is. Here's Flemish Cap. This one's much more distinctly visible. Strait of Gibraltar. Here we go. Are they closing in together? Is he gonna put them together? Oh shit, is he doing it? Oh shit, it's hard to tell now. Don't go that way. Come back. There's Flemish Cap still. Dude. It's there. It's fucking there, dude. That's crazy. I mean, it's pretty damn close if that's not exactly it. Maybe this portion. Not Flemish Cap, but whatever this more continental land section is, not the island Flemish Cap looking area. Then it's not an island, and then it's kind of not fitting. But so anyway, I think that would be interesting. There's so much going on with Earth. I've been thinking about it a lot. I still think about Fiji. Mariana Trench, this area. How it's a shadow of the motion. There's an imprint of the motion of the Mariana Trench being formed left behind it as it was forming. The process indicating this was instant. This did not take like millions and millions of years. This happened like a tsunami kind of time frame. But a tsunami of land and water. But it probably is a reflection, like maybe this region formed like initially all of like the Philippines and stuff had not formed yet, but as the wave pushed debris down, it formed the archipelago of Indonesia and Singapore and Malaysia. And then once that was formed, it basically deflected the waves back. It created this like region where all these waves came in from all these angles, but then just deflected back, maybe causing the Philippines to happen because they're kind of angled as if they were coming away from the Singapore area. And so maybe that caused it. It may even be that the same wave created the Philippines as like a first imprint, like a bulk of the material, and then it kept going and created the other two. Although it's a way different shape. I just say that because between Taiwan and Luzon, there's like an opening that kind of looks like it may be related to the like indentation in the imprint of the first portion. Just spitballing. I just think it's so interesting that the earth expanded. Like, it's such a good topic to talk to people about because it's just interesting and you can see it everywhere. You can see it everywhere. It's just not really common knowledge that it even is an idea. Because of plate tectonics, they basically like boxed out the other ideas. We're like, nah, this is it. Which is fair, you know. I'm gonna do the same. I'm gonna do the same to pretty much every model in the past. Box that shit out. This is it. So anyway, I just wanted to drop in. I moved. I've been busy. Painted the bedroom. Painted the closet. Painted the laundry room. Built a bunch of stuff in here. And cleaning, all sorts of stuff. Been busy. Moving. Just so it goes. Pretty lost on what to do now. Like to give up. I think I need to. Been thinking about it, just being like, you guys can get my attention when you want my attention. And then I'll talk. Kind of like a I just got better stuff to do. I got no energy, guys. Because I put so much into this and I don't get anything back. So until I get stuff back, I gotta put energy into me. It sucks. Not that I don't need to. I would do it anyway. For sure, I would be like, if I got my research going to the point where I could like live off of what I'm doing for this stuff and not have to have a job, because this is my job, I would definitely focus on me. Because I could. I'd be like, I fucking made it. I'm good. I'm good. Finally. Alright, I'm going to pause. I'll be back. Alright, I'm back. That was fast. At least in podcast time. In the meantime, I recorded a reaction to a Into the Impossible episode with Eric Weinstein as the guest that just happened, which I posted on my YouTube channel, my reaction. So I was just thinking that I would switch things up a little bit and just start talking about chaos theory. So let's talk about chaos theory. Chaos theory is a branch of mathematics focused on the study of chaos, states of dynamical systems whose apparently random states of disorder and irregularities are often governed by deterministic laws that are highly sensitive to initial conditions. The theory was summarized by Edward Lorenz as chaos, when the present determines the future, but the approximate present does not approximately determine the future. And this is like Laplace's demon. Which is just we may regard the present state of the universe as the effect of its past and the cause of its future, an intellect which at a certain moment would know all forces that set nature in motion and all positions of all items of which nature is composed, if this intellect were also vast enough to submit these data to analysis, it would embrace in a single formula the movements of the greatest bodies of the universe and those of the tiniest atom. For such an intellect, nothing would be uncertain, and the future, just like the past, would be present before its eyes. But no one has access to all data because the nature of reality is infinite. We can't model infinity because there's always more. God, we could say, has access. So, like, this is talking about God, but we can't do it. And so when we apply that to chaos theory, the present determines the future. That's Laplace's demon, which is essentially God. I don't know why they call it demon. Maybe because they're picturing an intellect rather than the intellect. But when the present determines the future, present determines the future. If we could know the present, then the future would be caused into existence from the present. So, but we could know beforehand the future if we knew the present. But the issue is the approximate present does not approximately determine the future. What does that mean? Well, let's say we say it's gonna rain tomorrow, and it rains tomorrow. Well, I mean, okay, but then let's say we do that 100 times, and it doesn't always rain tomorrow. That's because what we're using to determine the future isn't the present, but it's an approximation of the present, and as such, the approximate future is not necessarily accurate because it doesn't determine the future. It doesn't approximately determine the future. It can in instances, but it depends on the variables. It depends on how far in the future. Is it 4 seconds in the future? Is it a year in the future? Is it a million years in the future? The certainty depends on the time into the future. And the further into the future, the more variables can be unaccounted for that become overwhelming, essentially. So, like, if we're not accounting for a variable and it's like 1 second in the future, where I'm like, well, the weather 1 second from now is going to be pretty much what it is right now. I'm going to be accurate because it's 1 second. But if I try to do that same thing decades later, I don't know. There's too many variables. Too many things can change the circumstances so that it's just not an approximation of the actual future. So, why does this matter? It matters because it applies to everything. If we say, well, this person committed this crime, and so this is a approximate present when we start to like describe someone, when we judge someone, we're like, okay, they take them to court. They go into court, and the judge is like, listens to why they committed the thing and why they didn't commit the thing, whatever it may be. And the focus is on this like one thing that they're being judged for, and the rest of their lives are really like, not really substantial. They're just like, and even if they tried to really know the person they were judging, they still would have an approximate picture of who they are. And so, in judging and doling out the justice of the court, they're essentially taking a approximate present and then saying, well, here's what we'll do, which will lead to this future. But it won't necessarily, because it does not approximately determine the future. So if we're doing this regularly, where we're like, okay, this person did this thing that we didn't want them to do, so we're gonna do this other thing for the outcome of some approximate future that we envision, where, say, justice is brought about. It doesn't necessarily do that. So it's an issue when our court system isn't even accounting for that. The approximate present does not approximately determine the future, because we can't just do things and like essentially under the guise that it's for the future, for the benefit of society, for the benefit of whatever, when we don't even know what the future will be. Because our picture of the present is an approximation. If we knew the present, then it's not an approximation. But I don't think anyone knows the present except God. You know, to a point where they can like take action and dole out judgment upon others and limit them for the end goal purpose of bringing them to be their greatest self. Because why else are we judging people? Just to tear them down? Just tear them down. That's what it seems like we do. And then whenever someone does something, because the system's all fucked, they get blamed. The system, it lives on. It's eternal, and it thinks. It thinks. I guess it is in some sense. As I am in some sense. But like, it never gets the gaze of the people, because that's where the issue is. Is how we function societally. So I just want to talk about chaos theory because it's essential, and you can apply this to anything. Let's say a romantic interest. Anything. Just the approximate present does not approximately determine the future. Anyway, so back to Google Earth. What's some fun stuff? I was just looking at the Canadian Shield, trying to something I do is because I interpret that maybe Earth was once like Mercury and then became like Venus and then became like Earth, and so like the continental landmass of the Earth would be Venus, all of it, like all of the continents. That would be, in my interpretation, that would be what we would see as like the Venus portion. But there was a time when it wasn't Venus, then it was more like Mercury. And so there would be this portion of the landmass of Venus that is also Mercury. So like not all of the landmass would be Mercury, but all of it would be Venus. So portions of the landmass would be older. Essentially, we would say these are the oldest places on Earth, and these are the oldest rocks, and they're much less of the landmass than all of the landmass. And so like the Canadian Shield, it's considered one of the oldest areas on Earth. Its elevation, it's very flat. It's got all these like striations going on. I don't know, so I was looking at it, like these, all sorts of stuff. There's like what could be maybe interpreted as like folds. Why is it not showing different heights? Oh. But like, so then I was looking at Mercury, high resolution images. So my interpretation is if this happened, maybe we would see exposed like the Mercury. Before it became Venus, it was Mercury. Or like it was the first planet, and then it became the second planet. And then it became Earth. And so when it went from Venus to Earth, it was still just Venus, but then it rotated and had a magnetic field, which then caused a flood event and caused the Earth to shatter. So like Venus shattered, and all of what was once Venus became the continents of Earth. But before it was Venus, it was smaller. It was like Mercury. And so I'm like, well, maybe a portion of the land on Earth resembles Mercury and is distinctly different from other portions of Earth that we think are newer. Like the oldest stuff would be Mercury. When Earth was Mercury, would be the remnants of the surface that we still can see. So we would potentially be able to see signs of like the what do they call them? Scarps or something? Like the folding. It's basically just like rolling hills, because the planet is shrinking, and so the crust is folding on itself, creating these like rolling hills that are up to like a mile in height. And so people interpret like the Canadian Shields is a large area of exposed Precambrian igneous and high-grade metamorphic rock that forms the ancient geologic core of the North American continent. The ancient geologic core. So not the entire North American continent, just the core, which would to me suggest maybe it's Mercury's portion of the surface. So I was looking around at this, and large area of exposed Precambrian igneous. Igneous rock is one of the three main rock types, the others being sedimentary and metamorphic. It is formed through the cooling and solidification of magma or lava. So it's lava surface, which is also kind of crazy when you look at it, because the fucking Hudson Bay, like you look at there's actual indications of discrepancies in the age around here, even though the age of this stuff is not is that even what it is? I'm not sure if it's the age. This picture doesn't, I think it's the age. It's, yeah. But like almost like this was a volcano, maybe on when Venus, when Mercury erupted and became Venus, maybe one of the eruption points was at the Hudson Bay area here. Because, I mean, it's clearly rounded. And then even in the rock, there's indications of this. And it makes no sense that these would be different ages going outward like that. Unless there's an eruption there that we're just misinterpreting the amount of age difference based on different things. Like decay rates being more energetically rapid at certain areas, maybe. Anyway. But I don't know if we'd be able to find signs. I look for it all the time. When I'm not like actively looking for it, I'm just like consciously keep it in mind, so when someone does talk about some ancient rock that's only in this place, like in Australia and in Canada, which just so happens to be where impacts are most prevalent on Earth, as if the comets just like the old rocks. They're just like, fuck the new ones, we're gonna hit the old areas. So I started reading a bit about Mercury. The young age of the small scarps means that Mercury joins Earth as a tectonically active planet, with new faults likely forming today as Mercury's interior continues to cool and the planet contracts. And then they said, which means Mercury is still contracting and that Earth is not the only tectonically active planet in our solar system as previously thought. Which is interesting that Venus is considered to not be actively volcanic, tectonically active. Wait. Oh. What am I talking? That just occurred to me that they're fucking saying plate tectonics. How can you make a fucking single landmass and say it has plate tectonics because it's folding in on itself? Dude, you guys are ridiculous. I was thinking the whole time in my head, I'm thinking they mean volcanically active because it makes sense. Like they must be talking about like motion of like magma. Oh yeah, they're talking about that somehow this planet that has a single surface of landmass has plates. Fucking nonsense, guys. Can't just say other planets have plates because you see some activity. Oh, it's contracting, so it has plates. The fuck, guys? You, this is what happens when we approximate present, approximate future. Oh, the approximate present is that Earth is has plate tectonics. Not true. Approximation for sure, because the Earth expanded and does not function under plate tectonics. And then an approximate future, let's say tectonically active Mercury. I mean, if only tectonics were a thing. Like, it's a single landmass. Do you guys understand? Like I know geologists, people really deep into this ideology of plate tectonics are like, well, yeah, of course it makes sense, but like the average person is like, that does sound kind of ridiculous that you'd say all of one surface is somehow tectonically active as a single surface. Oh, it's going to break up in the future and then become many surfaces, and then plate tectonics. Like, where's the plates going over top each other because it's folding? That's more of like a crumpling going on, you know? Like, we even see that on Earth with crumpling, where like earthquakes essentially from the Earth expansion sent out waves that then rippled in certain areas, so much so that they've caused folding of the material on top of itself. But that's in a extreme event, whereas this is just like a compacting that's causing the crust to fold. I'm curious about this. Interior continues to cool. If they're thinking that just because it's contracting, they're like, it must be cooling, it's contracting. It's small, it's hot, and it's shrinking. Contracting even today. I really would like to see if we discover new formations that we didn't see in the past. Like someday we get because this one we just crashed this shit messenger. The messenger spacecraft revealed previously the messenger spacecraft or telescope spacecraft not telescope sensing device of sorts. It they just crashed it into the planet because it didn't have fuel to last, and so like once it had enough time, it was just destined to crash, and mission ended with a planned impact on the surface of Mercury on April 30th, 2015. Which is interesting because I was watching this happen when my research was going on, and I'm like, Mercury's the messenger god, guys. Fucking crashing the messenger spacecraft into the messenger planet. Wouldn't it be interesting if, like, our complete ignorance of what's going on the planet, we fucking crashed this spacecraft into it, and it's just sent, like, ripples in the right frequency that caused the planet to just, like, begin to vibrate, and then led to a planetary supernova. I'll just crash it into it. He's saying it was unstable. That's okay. Don't want to fuck with Mercury. Crashing shit into it, maybe not. Mercury's global magnetic field has existed for billions of years, with the slow cooling of Mercury's still hot outer core. Just never know. Never know. So, I don't really have something to talk about. I'm kind of feeling less motivated to podcast. This is probably not going to be the best episode. It sucks. I don't know. Sorry, I shouldn't have talked negative. Maybe it's fine. I'm just being... But, it's definitely a little slow. And I don't know exactly what to talk about right now. Other stuff going on, the election. They're cheating, guys. I mean, what the fuck? And people are okay with it because they want Trump out of office, so they're willing to defend the fact that the Democrat Party is just like fucking cheating. I mean, when they're finding like 1,000 Biden votes where the bubbles are all perfectly marked within the lines with all black ink. No, we just found 1,000 votes in this county. All of them were 1,000 votes Biden, 0 Trump. Like, no, dude. You guys are cheating. And then we got this old guy in office who may or may not live long. And then we got a fallback that no one even intended to vote for. Like, it's just happenstance. Why do we have a vice president who just, like, rides along? Like, oh, I'm gonna be president, and then this person's gonna be the next in line because I won. Why isn't the next in line the dude who lost and came in second place? Or chick, whatever. Like, what the fuck, guys? At least that, Then we have, like, a counteract, a counterbalance instead of, like, number 1 and 2. Is it just because we fear, like, the assassination of that person? Maybe if we weren't so politically party oriented, Like, what the hell are these parties? They're false idols. And minor ones at that, Certainly no one looks at them as gods, that's for sure. But they're still false idols. Just a freaking out-of-date process. But yeah, he's cheating. No one cares. And then Trump's like trying take it through the court system. Like, dude, just let it go. Let them. That's not the way to change the system. It's not through the system. Because the only way you get through the system is if you're basically following the cookie cutter narrow path that they want. I mean, unless the people overwhelm them and just, which would be good. Like if we could just elect everyone out of office and bring in a new wave of people with completely different ideas. Because right now, it's just more of the same. And guess what? The same don't work. This shit ain't working. It's just not. Temporarily. But if we're thinking long term, like, the shit we're doing now is not long term. Stealing office so that you can enforce some control on the people, because that's what's happening. Vaccines are coming. The Great Reset. There's probably going to be some universal income. They're just going to print money, hand out their printed bullshit, and slowly people will realize that the money is worthless, and then it's going to become so valueless that the only thing they can do is to like create a new currency, which is what they're going to do. Which is going to be like a global currency that is in control of the same fucking people. Why would we give the same people who crashed the system power to start the new system? How about we say fuck that, box that shit out. We got a future to plan for. I mean, they're gonna freaking control us. You don't. What was the quote? Can't just like tell people what to do and have everyone doing the same thing and being within this like tiny box of ability of what they can do. Like, we have to be able to do things that others don't agree with. If you don't allow that, I mean, where's this gonna go? Where is this gonna go? Total chaos? World War III? I mean, Iran seems to be afraid that Trump's gonna do something before he leaves office. Israel's bombing again. Doesn't fucking end, guys, until we stop it. Say, nah, son, you're done with that. As a collective, to all the militaries, alright? And then, you know, have nations form that don't have militaries and basically make it so that anyone who's pointing guns at them is in the wrong. Like, distinctly in the wrong. That would be nice. See, lead by example, like rather than leading by having a military, which lead by example. What happens when you have a military, especially when you're the leading global force in the world in terms of economic, just geopolitical influence, and you got a military, and your objective is to have the biggest and strongest military, and you're just pumping money in and creating like the worst of the worst technologies, and in abundance, so much abundance that anyone who even tries to make anything has to bow down. Dude. Also, United States, I was reading, is declaring, what was it? I gotta pull this article up because it's so fucking ridiculous. There it is. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo announced on Thursday during his visit to Israel that the State Department will designate the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement as, quote, anti-Semitic. BDS is an international campaign that calls on people to pressure Israel over its human rights violations through various boycotts. Today, I want to make one announcement with respect to a decision by the State Department. Mind you, they're speaking for Americans here. Excuse me, you're using your fucking power in government to enforce some agenda across the world. Today, I want to make one announcement with respect to a decision by the State Department that will regard the global anti-Israel BDS campaign as anti-Semitic. Pompeo said while meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Jerusalem this week. Look, we want to stand with all other nations that recognize the BDS movement for the cancer that it is, and we're committed to combating it. Mind you, pressure Israel over its human rights violations. And they're talking about calling someone else a cancer. Their human rights violations are fucking egregious. It's disgusting. It's not okay. And then they use this term anti-Semitic, which is Jew-related, not Israel-related. Israel is not Israel. It's just some country someone named Israel convinced enough Jews to move there. And then made it look like it was Israel. And then they just fucking commit the worst of human rights violations. And no one gives a shit. And this is what happens. Anyone who stands against it, the United States fucking State Department. One announcement regard the anti-Israel BDS campaign as anti-Semitic. Like, what the fuck does that even mean? We want to stand with all other nations that recognize the BDS movement for the cancer that it is. Are there other nations saying this? Oh yes, the BDS movement is a cancer. I'm sure they're not saying the word cancer unless they're all fucking using the same language. Which would mean they're all in what's the word? Conspiratory. Oh yeah, it's conspiracy. What's the conspiracy? Conspiracy define. A secret the action of plotting or conspiring, a secret plan by a group to do something unlawful or harmful. So is it good to stop someone from pressuring Israel over its human rights violations by calling them a cancer when you're in the most influential position of the United States government? Fucking high up in the US government. It's not clear what the label from the State Department would mean. It said the US will identify organizations that engage in BDS, in boycott, divestment, and sanctions, and withdraw US government support for such groups. Mind you, United States uses these tactics fucking ruthlessly. Iran just sanction. North Korea, sanction. Just blocks incoming resources. I mean, ruthlessly uses these tactics. And this organization is doing it because this country is committing human rights violations in fucking mass, just constantly, day in, day out. Just I'm sure every day there's family after family fucking crying and turning into terrorists because they want to fight back against the people that are oppressing them, and then what happens? They do what the people doing it want them to do, which is become terrorists. They're like, oh, did we ruin your entire life and you have the perfect target to focus all of your hatred towards? Why don't you do that so we have all the more reason to impose our will? It's fucked up. Anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. Dude, how dare you? This isn't even him. It's the Department of fucking State. Dude. Did they seriously tweet that? Where's this fucking tweet? I give up. Oh. Also visited a settlement in the West Bank. Any products made in West Bank settlements can now be labeled made in Israel. In recent years, we have promoted laws in most U.S. states which determine the strong action is to be taken. That strong action is to be taken against whoever tries to boycott Israel. I mean, they're literally trying to make it so that they can do whatever they want. Everyone has to accept it, and they just go about freely. Take what they want, and if anyone does anything to stop them, they're just strong action taken against whoever tries to boycott Israel. Guys, this fucking place is not Israel. How's that for boycotting Israel? It ain't Israel at all. So fucking, it's fucked up. Like, people don't know where Israel was. They just fucking chose it because it's the best spot. Oh, look at that. It's right along the Mediterranean. We don't want to have it in the Middle East area, so we'll just take this little corner here. And it's got some places like Temple Mount. We'll call that the place that definitely indicates this was in fact Israel because this structure's here. Are you sure, though? Are you sure, though? Because I'm pretty sure there's a lot of indication it was a Roman structure. But hey, what do I know? What the hell do I know? See, they just want to have Israel, the powers that be, and be able to create the world where prophecy is fulfilled in their minds in such a way where they anticipate that the outcome will be that everyone is in agreement that Jesus is God. And let's go back to chaos theory. When the present determines the future, but the approximate present does not approximately determine the future. Now, mind you, this is something they've been planning for centuries. People have been working on this. Moving global events towards the return of Jesus. Seriously. And so their thoughts are, this is the approximate present. Jesus is God. That's an approximate present because it's true. It's approximately. But all is God. So it's not really like a full picture of anything at all. And then the approximately determine the future does not approximately determine the future. So we got this approximate present, and then our approximate determination of the future is that there's like agreement and peace can come, and then the kingdom of God will be on earth when Jesus returns to be God. But, you know, in so trying to fulfill Bible prophecy, things like this happen where Israel is forced into existence, and anyone who says anything against them is violating some bullshit law that someone made up to defend the country, even though it's not even real. They just made this shit on top of another country and had global consensus and created really compelling reasons for people to be okay with it, like the Holocaust. You can't just trick people. It's all lies. It's all a house of cards. And what happens when you blow on a house of cards? It topples. And that's all I'm doing. I'm just blowing on it. Just talking. Blow, blow, blow. It's gonna topple now. Sorry the cat's out the bag, guys. Nice try. But when you do stuff like this, I just say no. Stop defending them. Let's talk about this. The biases here that are at play. Anyway, sorry, I'm a little, is it obvious that I am a little not happy when I look at the actions of Israel? Because of all the things going on, and that it's by design. Someone definitely is using emotions to their benefit, playing on people's heartstrings, making it's like the media does. They'll just have some like memorial service for something that they fucking did and just have it plastered all over the media, just day in and day out, until you've been fed enough information where, like, okay, the public accepts the thing that we wanted them to accept, and they're emotionally reacting in the way we want them to emotionally react. So it's good. We know that they've accepted it because they're emotional about it. And then they make it really, when you're emotional about it, when you've accepted it, you really fall into that, like, that's the thing. That's why this is such a tough topic to talk about, because there's so much going on. See, they don't know I exist yet, so I'm able to talk about them freely, and hopefully I'll say enough that people will wake up to what's going on, because this isn't about the individuals. I'm not hating on anyone individually, nor am I encouraging any violence whatsoever. Just conversation, discussion, working this out, because, like, this is not good. It's so not good. When the United States is backing it, I mean, it's one thing if they want to go out on their own, form a nation. Like, if all the Jews in the world came together and were like, we want to form a nation, we're going to form it where we think Israel was. And they just fucking did it and imposed their will in the area, but they did it. And then they didn't have the global backing of the world to stop them or to support them. But they did it because they were so driven. That would be one thing, but really what happened was global powers basically made it happen. And then they just fed resources to really get it to thrive because of the agenda behind it all. And it's fucking nonsense. I mean, just go watch YouTube videos on Israel treatment of people. It's crazy. I don't know where the one documentary is. Oh, I think this might be it.
On a hill near Hebron, a few mobile homes.
נרצח אדם צדיק.
Sorry guys, I'm looking for a quote. This is not... That's not it. Anyway. I'm gonna pause and find a video. Alright, I'm back. Yeah, I was looking around. I was trying to find a specific video where they're talking about Israeli settlements, because I just feel it's such a good example. I found this one though.
Today, you harass them and they are scared of you because you have a gun.
Don't arrest it because of me.
Yes, so I'm asking you to not do that.
Yes, they throw no rocks in.
The 5-year-old kids don't throw rocks at you.
Yes. Okay, do you understand? Throw rocks in the.
The 5-year-old kids that walk past here don't do anything to you.
But
They are scared of you. There's no reason to scare
what you
them.
don't understand, this child, another 2 years.
Another 2 years. 5-year-old kids don't throw rocks at you. The guy says another 2 years. So he's like suggesting that he's doing it in preparation for when the children start to throw rocks. And this is what happens there. The children do throw rocks because they're getting fucking oppressed and they start to wake up to it. You know, they go through like their childhood and are just in such this like stressful environment that they grow up rather quickly, and then you have young children fighting this oppressive system and throwing rocks. That's all they can do. Not realizing that maybe they're gonna get shot. You know, maybe realizing over time that realizing they're gonna get shot. You know, becoming like fucking soldiers. And he's like, well, they're gonna. Oh, really? Because you're fucking oppressing the hell out of them. Of course they're gonna throw rocks at some point and gonna do more at some point. And the dude defends it. Let's keep going. This is crazy though.
Come to here and איך אומרים לזרוק? throw איך אומרים? rocks. They throw rocks on us.
No, they won't.
What?
They won't.
Go
These
now
kids,
to the 160 and מרקחת and you see them. In
these
your eyes.
kids are scared of you.
Scared of me.
Yeah, they're scared because you have a gun and they're 5 years old. They don't understand anything.
go
They
to-
don't know about Israel or Palestine. They're 5-year-old kids. They're
Go to the
children.
160 and בית מרקחת and
But
now,
we're talking about the kids here. The children here are scared. And you're the reason for it. You're scaring
I need
5-year-old
to
kids.
save all my people. What I can do?
Is that your job, to scare 5-year-old children?
No, yes.
Yes, it's your job to scare 5
No, yes.
year old children?
Because if they don't afraid of me, in to last time they come in and with the knife and they.
It's
try to
5-year-old children.
If
Five-
they're not afraid of me next time they come with a knife and then a gun or what.
5-year-old children.
Another 10 years.
Oh my god. They do understand that they're literally causing the people to be in a position where they are basically obligated to fight back unless they just like completely bend over and just say, yes, I concede or give up all of myself for you for no reason, just because you want to be here and I'm here, so let me. Like, of course they're gonna fight back. That's just nature, to defend our territory to a degree, you know, like survival. Which is fair. It's fair to fight for survival. Because that's what's happening. It's not like Israel's fighting for survival. They're fighting for territory. There's a difference. And power, and not survival, because they're backed by the United States. They're backed by all these other agendas that feed them so much that their survival's not really in like a concern to them, except for when it comes to like Iran getting a nuclear weapon, something like that. That they're like, well, then there's this issue. Which then the United States is like, oh no, don't you get a nuclear weapon. United States is real hard. And they're really just an arm of Israel. Because they know if Iran had a nuclear weapon, Israel would have to at least pause, because Israel is just ruthlessly moving their border. And don't think it's going to stop at the so-called West Bank. It's going into Syria. It's going into Jordan. It's going throughout the Middle East if they can get what they want. It's literally just a conquering. And that's what happened with the current Israel, is basically they were like, well, we'll form an Israel and you guys can have Palestine over there. And they're basically like, we'll only take like this much of your land. Don't worry. You can have that much. And the people who live there were like, no, we don't want you taking our land. That seems like a pretty shitty deal to us. And so they just kind of like pushed their way in with the 6-Day War, which is held in esteem. 6 days, it's glorious. And then they took more land, and they're like, oh, well, because you guys didn't want to agree, we're trying to have like an agreement, and you weren't like in agreement that we were able to have the things that we wanted. So we're just going to take it. And then we're going to make it like you're the villains here because you dared stand in our way. And look how great we are. We just massacred you in a 6-day war. Because we got, backed by the United States government. We got all this expensive shit. But they're like, God was with us. God was with us those days. When we just fucking massacred and stole land, God was with us. And then over time, it's like, oh no, well, we want this land. Let's see, map of Israel. Cross time. What in the fuck? What in the actual fuck? Alright. 1946, Palestine was almost entirely Palestine. 1947, they partitioned it. The UN plan. See the UN. Don't worry, Palestine. We're just going to partition your land. United Nations. As if they have some say in the matter. It's all just these agendas so that United Nations, we can say, is in the arm of the people who are trying to create Israel and trying to fulfill Bible prophecy. The United Nations is definitely part of their mechanisms for doing it because they did it. And then, as you can see, the time went by and they slowly took some more until the 6-Day War came. Or is this actually after the 6-Day War? This is up until the 6-Day War? I don't know. Plan. And then, okay. And then this is what we actually took because we fucking took it. And now this is what remains of Palestinian land. It's pretty much gone. It's just in the West Bank, and it's just like literally surrounded by Israel. They managed to get the whole border. Now all they need to do is close it in. Gaza Strip is fucking, it's disgusting. It's disgusting. See, if they weren't claiming to be Israel and taking some biblical position and acting like superior, oh yes, we're Israel, so we can do what we want. And I want to be so focused on it, but I just am. I get that I talk a lot about this. I'm gonna keep doing it probably until I get shut down, probably for it. But it needs to be said. Like, it's fucking out of control when they're conquering like they are, and it's not over. And using United States resources. So if you're, I don't think nearly as many Americans care about Israel as would warrant us to be so focused on their agenda. And the people who are like secular and not, say, Christian or Jewish or whatever, someone who's not so who's just neutral in it all, observing it, those people are moved towards support and complacency and understanding, and not really thinking about it by the Holocaust. So it's pretty much just the only ones who are in opposition are people who are like feeling the ramifications of this, like Muslims, which then makes it as if it's like the Muslims are violent because they're fighting back. And then on top of that, they get blamed for things that weren't even Muslim, like 9/11. That shit wasn't some Muslim hijackers. Come on. It's just someone who's behind this exact agenda, who's like, it was Muslims. It was Muslims who did it. You hate the Muslims yet? Anyone who's like kind of indifferent, just observing passively, not really paying attention. Not only is there reason to support Israel because of the Holocaust, but now there's reason to oppose Muslims because of 9/11 and all these other things that have happened since. Like, just the constant belittlement of the Middle East and degrading it, making it like Muslims are like second class in the media, in the government actions, in the way policy is formed, intangible ways where there is a bias that is just fucking prevalent and overwhelming and creating division and leading to war. Fucking war for this. War for someone's agenda to make it as if Bible prophecy is fulfilled. Do you care if that's happening? Do you care? Are you over there like, man, I wish this Ezekiel 35 would be fulfilled? Or are you like, I want to watch some sports and, live my life, whatever? It's like not focused on this. And it's just, but they're using our resources. They're killing. It's real bad for this. When we don't, like, most people just don't care. Besides just like, oh yeah, the Holocaust happened and that sucks, and I have empathy and I feel bad, and so, I want things to go well for them. But it's all a fucking by design play on human psychology, and it's uses like substantial resources from society to basically control it, which is essentially wasting. Like, it's taking resources that could be used for the betterment of mankind and using them to basically destroy mankind, because that's what it's bringing us towards, is this like standoff where either they relent or there's a standoff. Because they're wrong. They're just stealing the land and calling it Israel. Look at that. It says Palestine and then it says Israel. How convenient. Just taking over like the weak point in the area. Oh, this one's there's all sorts of reasons we can use this place over some other country. Like it's less established. It has Jerusalem in it. You know, it's perfect, but it's just a foothold into the region. There's maps where they show Israel that definitely includes Syria, definitely includes Jordan. Not sure if I can find it, but there's a map where they label it Israel, and then it's substantially more than Israel. But it was like an official map too. Oh well. Danger, Will Robinson, danger. Alright, guys. I'm gonna call it. Peace out. Pardon me for violating my the principles of chaos theory by having an approximate present and trying to determine the future and taking action based on it. Although, I mean, it could be argued that the approximate present becomes the present if we do recognize all as one, because that's just truth. And that's not approximation, it's more of an exact present. And so it may be that the future can be more determined. In that case, it's much less of an approximation. It's enough accuracy, enough variables accounted for, all of them, and how they're all one, where the future becomes a little more deterministic and more able to be accurately foretold. Alright. Thanks for listening. Catch y'all later.